Welcome back to the party. Next, he is the Chief Operating Officer at Surtech and previously spearheaded corporate development at Physical Note, a global machine learning GovTech unicorn. He obtained a dual BA in economics and psychology from Yale University, concentrating in behavioral economics. Please put your virtual hands together for Daryl Hok. Welcome to BlockDown, sir. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting to be a part of this. And I want to talk a little bit about just the concept of securing your bag, but less on, of course, like what to invest in, and more in terms of true security from the element of what the community can do and how you can be vigilant and proactive about securing your bag. So I'll start actually just by talking about, I'm sure a lot of people are aware, but just talking about some of the historical effects that have rippled. In 2020, we've seen a massive rise of what's been going on in DeFi. So that's been the influx of a lot of capital, a lot of total value locked. But then stifling that growth a bit is also just a lot of hacks. And within the hacks, it includes both audited and non-audited projects. Primarily, obviously, non-audited, but even about 2% of audited projects still face attacks. Because inherently, if the code is going to be public, there's just a lot of reasons for the malicious activities to be happening because it's a bounty that they could try to mess things up. And part of the difficulty is when you audit code, you're looking at what the code looks like in a box. So before it's actually deployed on the ground. But when it's on the ground, the interesting thing is the ground's also moving. So an example is you could secure code and think about what's going on. How does it actually work? Is it perfectly aligned with what's intended? But then if something new is innovative and it's released, so let's say at the point flash loans were released, it's impossible to account for that because you did not know that it was going to be released. But when it's blockchain, when it's just moving pieces, then things are a lot more difficult to deal with, and you have factors coming from every direction. So for this, I actually want to talk about on the Surtech side, we have end-to-end security across the entire blockchain lifecycle. So what we've tried to do is expand further than just audits. And in terms of this, there's three key pieces related to things that anyone could use, and that's all found on Surtech.org. And so the idea of this is that right now, security is something that you might think is universally important, but it's only kind of understood deeply by the expert community because it entails, like, to truly know what's going on, it entails reading through the code, trying to use some tests, etc. So what we wanted to do at Surtech is try to expand this so it's easy to use and approachable for the broader community. So the auditing piece to begin with on the left side is still how we typically start engagement. So we get really intimate with the code. We really try to understand what's going on, work directly with the team, ask a lot of questions, try to break it before deployment, and then try to give our best suggestions of what goes on based off of the scope of work. So sometimes, for instance, projects just need something immediately, turn around. So the window is a lot smaller for when the audit is required to be finished. Other times we could suggest to them, like, let's kind of extend this a bit because there's just so many pieces. The next piece is Skynet. So the purpose of Skynet is actually to monitor in a dynamic fashion. But the audit is a static fashion. So it's at one point in time, it's more of a snapshot. Skynet is to say when it's live, we'll take a deep dive and monitor everything that's going on and how it interacts with things in the surrounding world. So this is really the ecosystem of everything that happens, including the live code itself upon deployment. It includes things like the social media presence, as well as some transaction history, as well as governance, permissions. So this is all present. You can find it on Surtech.org. I'll talk about this a little bit. Then it goes to Surtech Shield. The security oracle is actually a piece of Skynet a bit. It extends to show things on chain. So this is for other projects to actually pull the security scores of certain contracts. But I'll skip over to Surtech Shield, which is a community-driven decentralized mutual. So it's an insurance alternative in which users who, let's say the idea is that you're planning to own tokens for a while, and you can see that through Skynet that this project is pretty secure, then the question is it secure enough to be holding for long term? And so we wanted to answer that question and give an option. And so that option itself is Certic Shield, which allows you to purchase some cover to hold your tokens in a more safe fashion. It's decentralized, so it's based off community governance and based off community funds. But ultimately, we give a lot more transparency because it leverages the security oracle and Skynet to understand like what am I actually buying, and presumably, or that's a direct relation to what you're actually buying. The price is going to be changing. So if it's more secure, it's going to be cheaper. If it's less secure, it's going to be more expensive. And the last piece actually wraps everything together. This is the front page of Certic.org. This is a security leaderboard. This shows you across a handful of our clients, so the majority of our clients will be on here. You could see exactly how many audits were happening, the size of the scope of the audits, the scores of the audits, and then all the Skynet suggestions or Skynet analysis if they actually employed Skynet and purchased it and ran it on their project, as well as Certic Shields. So what are the limitations? How many more shields could be purchased? How many shields have been purchased already, et cetera. So I'll begin actually from the leaderboard side. So the idea of this is it's security, it's transparency, and it's just easy to use. So very easy to understand. On the right side, you can see different portions. So as it scrolls down toward the middle is Skynet. Toward the bottom is things like sentiment analysis, so Twitter activity. So if we see any weird things going on Skynet, it will look for all these suspicious activities, suspicious transactions, and suggest it on there. So there's actually an alert piece that's just at the front page as well. So as we hear from the community, as we kind of investigate or have our conversations aboard, but also just look at what's going on in terms of activity. Sometimes you might see that we've sent alerts of potential rug pulls, potential just companies that actually acted like they got an audit through us, but they did not. So we just want to alert the community. There's an alerting feature as well. So that's somewhere that you could just go to, see what's going on. There's a current list even today of rug pulls that we've identified. Some of them did already pull the rug, unfortunately. But so the idea is that we want transparency to be on there and this to be approachable for everybody. So you don't have to be anybody in particular. This isn't just for the security focused or even just the technical. You could be just a person in crypto wanting to know what's going on, want to navigate a bit, and you can see some of the projects there. So going to the next piece of Skynet. So Skynet, as I mentioned, is meant for continuous coverage. So 24/7 coverage to monitor things like the binaries, what's going on in the code, deep in the code when it's deployed, what's going on social media, governance. So if there's the ability for any master contract. So some of these projects purposely deploy with a master. And what that means is just in case something happens, they could freeze, they could do something. But we think that that's something you should know about. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean necessarily that having this this privileged position is just inherently hacker prone. It just means that they have a lot of control. And so as decentralized as community members who might own tokens or whatnot, this is just part of the diligence that you should just know about it. You should understand, like, is it something that you're okay with or is it not? Do you want to own the tokens based off knowing that there's some more master control to like freeze or potentially print new tokens? If they are doing this for the benefit of the community, maybe it's a good thing. Otherwise, it's definitely some sort of risk. And then going into this, we also have some transaction history and some things that you could kind of monitor very publicly what's going on. The last piece over here is the shield. So Certic Shield. As I mentioned, the structure of this is it's a decentralized alternatives insurance. And by having it be decentralized, the fees that are paid by people purchasing shields could go directly to the pools. So the way this works is it leverages CTK, the Certic Chain token, as the primary bed of funds. Those tokens are actually stakeable. And so they're a proof of stake model in which they already gain staking rewards just by being staked. So what happens is that as the collateral is staked, it's actually also already growing with staking rewards. But on top of that, if you stake it and give it into the pool as collateral, then it's earning stake rewards plus earning any fees paid by people who purchase the shields. So together, there's a more inclusive view of can I earn my rewards by giving my funds passively? In this case, if there are votes that go in for reimbursement requests, then of course the part of the funds proportionally to what you've given in would be used to send for the reimbursements. So it's a higher risk, high reward, but ultimately it kind of goes through the fact that the system of insurances typically they leverage the fact of the numbers game where there's more funds, there's a larger pool of funds not typically used. In the case it's used, then you pay it out, but otherwise you're able to earn and collect. And so this alternative to that gives users a way to purchase things and just hold it to help you hold for long term or whatever use case it is there. So going back and wrapping this all together, actually, I did want to maybe focus a little bit more on the leaderboard because we changed what it looks like a little bit. It actually has some more updates. You'll also be able to see on the top the onboarding projects area. So at the very top, you could actually search through whatever projects you want, whatever token name, the project name. But in the middle, there's actually the onboarding projects area. So we have had substantial demand, and we still do have a massive backlog. But what we're trying to do is open up capacity to help secure as many as possible, because a lot of these projects aren't really going to wait. So they either obtain an audit or they don't. But regardless, they're going to deploy at the date that they're going to deploy. And so on our side, we see it as a responsibility. Then we need to make sure that we're as scalable as possible to be able to handle this influx. So you can see the onboarding projects tab are projects that have committed, that have paid and are going to work with us or are working with us. So we're doing their audit now. And so we want to be transparent to the community as well to say, these guys, if they do say, for instance, that they are working with us, they truly are. Now, any project that mentions that they're working with us that's not on this page, they are not working with us. And so now together in this fashion, we are pretty transparent, like what's going on, what are we working on, what are we going to be working on, what have we worked on. So it does have a layer of transparency that's, I think, you typically don't usually see in just maybe non-crypto. It's essentially like, here are all of our customers, and here, like, just you could see them 100%. So it was a decision that we made, and we thought that's going to make the community stronger ultimately. And so we did put that together, but there's oftentimes questions going on in Telegram, whether this is true or not, whether it's valid or not. So the number one place to go to is cert.org. Cert.org, you could find this whole list, and then it's continually updated. So you also see Skynet's real-time scans that are going on. It's on the top piece. And so you can actually follow, like, if scores increase, if they decrease, why. Some things that are going on in the market, and of course the sentiment that pulls out all the different words are being spoken about. The larger the word, it means the more times it's used. So if you see a big word of like scam, then that's telling that at least the community is using that word a lot. And so together, this is intended to give that full view. So I would suggest to check it out, especially if you haven't seen it before. Check it out, bookmark it. Just have this be like maybe a little bit something that's in your typical due diligence line of work. And then when you dive into that a bit, you'll be able to really just have the ability to do your diligence and dive deeper if you're technically savvy, or just kind of leave it out there. All audit reports are actually on here as well. So you can just kind of skim through. But we did summarize it to see whether each of these projects did correct the suggestions that we had asked them to. So sometimes, for instance, they have a full list of, we say like, this is critical, this is like medium, X, Y, and Z. And they know about it and they acknowledge it, and they say like, we're going to do it later. So we actually have a list in here that's even prior to entering the file, that'll show you like, of the 10 things that we mentioned, they've only completed 8 of them. So it also gives you a sense, like if they did complete 10, great. You can think for yourself, like, what does that mean? But typically that's a good sign, because that means that they may actually care about things. Okay, great. So together, we're really just hoping that you could secure your bag. And as I mentioned, some of the things that we've learned over time is that this security is something that affects everybody. But of course, it's not easy for everybody to really understand what's going on. And so instead, this effort is our community-driven approach to really involve people to be more transparent for the community. And our goal is that security steps up so we could have the growth that we've seen in 2020 with DeFi, with NFTs, with new different models and different technologies, but without the ever-growing increase of hacks. Thank you, and feel free to ask any questions. We have a Telegram. You can hop on our website. Thanks again for having me, and excited for what's in store.